Good afternoon to my friends, enemy, family, and foes. Today I have on a close friend whom I met through my roommate Jake, named Ethan, aka the Natty King. Ethan, over the past 2 years that I've known him, has really started to gain a following on his YouTube channel. He's went full on into being a health advocate and, inspiring me and others to look after our own physical bodies while also being the best selves we can be. You know, he's a great guy, and I know he's going to bring a lot of important answers to some of my questions and maybe some of your questions as well about what it means to be healthy and how we can be healthier people in 2023. And so, without further ado, I'll let him introduce himself.
Hey
Take it
man,
away.
really appreciate the intro. As you said, my name's Ethan. I go by the Natty King because I am natural and I am the king of my own realm, you know?
Yes, sir.
I'm a personal trainer. I train at LA Fitness. I train at my UCF facility, the RWC, and I do independent coaching where I pretty much write programs for clients. And I really just try to help them live a healthy lifestyle and accomplish all their performance, physique, and pretty much all their lifestyle goals, you know?
And you have a YouTube channel.
Yes, I do post my fair share of content. I post on YouTube, I post on Instagram, not really on TikTok, but
I'm not on TikTok either.
eventually I'll make the transition, you
I
know.
tell myself that too. TikTok is just such an investment.
Yes, it's a lot of time. It's a lot of time, you know, but there's a good following to be found
Mm-hmm.
on TikTok.
There
So
is.
definitely, definitely thought
So
about it. I posted a little bit on TikTok. It's just an adjustment to the different editing style. That's all that it is.
talk about like the videos you like to post because they're funny, but they are also inspirational. At least some of the ones I've seen, like the ice bath one. Right after you made that video, I signed up to take an ice bath at UCF. But there are other ones where it's like pretty clever. He had like the 12 days of Christmas, and each day was like a different workout. So that was also pretty sick.
Yeah, if you're not following me already, you can go follow me now on Instagram. I'm, as I said, the Natty King Ethan. And yeah, the content I really like to post is one, I like to post some informative stuff so the audience can really leave my videos learning something and really feeling like more prepared to achieve their goals, whether it's strength goals or changing their bodies and minds. But I also like to make it entertaining. I hope that the people will watch my videos and, just get a little bit of a little laugh off of whatever I'm posting, try to make it a little bit engaging.
So why do you want to start focusing on your own health?
So I've been in exercise since I was about 7 years old.
Oh
My
wow.
Yeah, my grandma, she was in the army and it was always push-ups and sit-ups before supper. So
Really?
yeah, yeah. So I would be I remember I was probably about like 8 and I was doing I got my first set of 50 sit-ups and I was like, Grandma, I got 50 sit-ups.
8 years
She's like,
old.
yeah, that's good.
That's pretty awesome. I'm not
Yeah,
gonna lie.
yeah. So it's always
Start
been a
them
part of
young.
my life for real. Yeah. And I think with family, one thing that people don't think about is you transfer your genetics to your children, but you also transfer your habits.
That's very
And
true.
my grandma, she transferred the habit of exercising onto me, and I've really made it a part of my life. I really love like increasing my performance and feeling like I'm getting stronger, and I really just love to share that passion with other people.
Why do you
And
like to share it?
well, I feel like I know that there is an epidemic in America. It's cardiovascular related disease is the number one killer in America. And I really feel like I have the know-how to try and offset some of these dangers,
Mm, mm-hmm.
People with heart disease, it leads to a whole bunch of other issues. Like coronary artery disease is a big one. It's really just based off of America's sedentary lifestyle and as well as our eating habits.
I had a friend who told me, in America we don't eat to live, we live to eat.
That's very true. That's
Yeah.
very true. Yeah. Everyone's thinking about the next meal all the time, and all the foods that we're eating, they are so high calorie dense with so little nutrients that we are just constantly wanting the next meal because we'll fill up, we'll overeat, and then it's just so satiating. It's just so tasty that you really are not satiated and you really just want to come back and have more and more.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah. when I grew up, I ate awful.
Mm.
Like I was a big gamer, and so I had to slowly over the course of like 2 years kind of rearrange my gut to be used to like actually having healthy foods.
Mhm.
So like when I would come home from school, all I could think about instead of eating like a salad would be a bowl of hot Cheetos or a bowl of Doritos, and that was my like nutrition.
Yeah, and it's like your brain is trained for it, you know?
Hmm.
Your brain, we're habitual
And
beings.
your stomach gets used to it, and so the more you have it, the more your stomach is going to be expecting to be eating that. And I
And
got
it's
to
your mind
college,
as well, you
yeah.
know? You're trained for it. Once you come home, if you have a bowl of Doritos a couple times, then your brain gets accustomed to it, and it thinks every time you come home, it's gonna react and think about that bowl of Doritos because it's the same action and it's paired with something else, which
Hmm.
happens to be the Doritos. So every
Yeah,
time you come home, I want the Doritos, you know? So
exactly.
the best thing you can do is really just keep those high calorie foods out of the house. You know,
Yeah,
just keep it out of availability.
that's true. And I remember my acne was awful. And once I started eating better, every time I would eat better, my acne would go away. And every time I would slip up and eat something really awful, my acne would instantly shoot back up. But I remember when I started eating healthier, it was nasty at first, but I started getting so used to it and I started craving all those healthy things every day.
Mhm.
And so, obviously, at a university, we have all these options of Taco Bell, Cantina, McDonald's, Chick-fil-A everywhere. There are still healthy options that are promoted, but I want to ask you and Mike. I had a class called Food and Society, and so we were trying to wonder, how much of, let's say, obesity or those diseases are on the individual, and how much are on the society for making those foods what people can afford and what people are able to, actually have time to eat because they can't, cook chicken, they can't do all these other things because they're so busy or tired.
Yeah, that's a very good point. There's a big trend between a family's economic status and trends for obesity
Hmm.
because people who have very limited finances, they can't really afford all the healthy options that a lot of us can, or that's how they feel, you know? It's a lot of people have food insecurity. They're not sure if they're going to be able to afford enough food to feed their whole family. So it makes sense that they would try to opt in for the most calorically dense foods that are the cheapest,
Yeah.
you know. But just by being aware of what you're putting in your body and being aware of what kind of healthy foods are cheaper is going to really be able to benefit you. Like if you're getting tuna is one of the cheapest sources of protein you can
Very true.
purchase, and it's so protein dense,
It's
you
good for
know.
your brain, I heard as well.
Yeah,
Seafood's very good for your brain.
yeah, and so I would say that it definitely is on the individual as well as the society because you know, the way that it's set up, fast food chains, you know, they're trying to market to these individuals that
Hmm.
are already craving their foods, you know.
Yeah.
And once you so think about having Taco Bell, just by driving past it and thinking on the last experience that you've had at that restaurant, you have a physiological response. You start to salivate and
You
you
start
start to
thinking
actually,
about it. Oh, I've been
exactly.
there.
And then
I need that Taco Bell. I need
because
that
of
Taco
that,
Bell.
it's like cravings, you know, and it's so
Yeah.
much harder to turn that down. So one thing that so you can take personal responsibility for your actions, and the way that you can kind of offset that is by prior planning. If you're already full because you ate preemptively, you planned ahead, you knew that you would want that Taco Bell on the drive home, so you prepped a meal and you ate that, and then you're not even hungry when you see the Taco Bell. That's how you take actual accountability and you start to see the differences. If you're failing to prepare, you're preparing to fail,
Very true. Very
and that's
true.
a bar.
That is a bar. That is a bar. Um, I also wanted to add, like, as much as it is on the society, I hold myself accountable in the sense that, like, if you have a wall, you can do a wall sit. If you have a floor, you can do a plank or a push up.
Yeah,
And if you just have legs, you can squat
yeah,
without any weight.
yeah,
You can just do those things throughout the day while you're at home.
yeah.
It just is like the inspiration to do it,
Mhm.
But our society, as much as it is on the individual, when we turn on things like sports or TV, we're constantly bombarded with ads for unhealthy foods sponsored by some of the healthiest individuals. Like, you know, Stephen Curry advertising for Subway. We all know Subway is like awful, but you think he eats Subway? Hell no, you know. And
Probably
so
not. He could probably afford it because he's so active. The
exactly.
more active you are, the more calories you can afford to consume.
Very true, very true. But
Which is another issue with how sedentary America is.
yeah.
Americans are often very, very sedentary in their lifestyle, which means that their general activity level is low, and that means that their calorie burning is going to be low. That being said, they also tend to not really think about the foods they're eating, which means that they're choosing higher calorie options. When you're in a calorie surplus with low activity, you're going to be in a huge calorie surplus, which leads to over a long term large weight gain and oftentimes leads to obesity,
Mm-hmm.
which is the crisis that we've seen taking place in America.
So you're also a personal trainer.
Yes, yes.
What got you into doing that?
It's just been my passion for as long as I can remember. I've always been working out, and I've always worked out with friends. And I got certified a year ago over spring break, and I've been loving it. I'm just really spreading the word, trying to get as many people on a healthy lifestyle before it's too late, because eventually the the adverse health risks they come to bite you in the butt, and
Mm-hmm.
ideally, it's much better to prevent those health scares than to try and cure them.
So when you're first with a client, what are some steps you take to say like this is what I'm gonna give them as a workout routine? Talk
So,
about the how you do it because I've always been interested.
gotcha. Yeah. So the first thing that I'll do when I meet a client is we'll introduce ourselves. I try to just form a general connection. Talk to them at person to person, and then the first related question I'm going to ask them is what their goals are. Because if you're trying to put on weight, as in muscle, it's going to be a lot different than somebody who is like 200 pounds overweight and
Mm-hmm.
wants to reduce their body fat.
Yeah.
So it really depends on their goals. Some people have athletic goals, in which case we'd be doing a lot more explosive dynamic movements, change of motion, all that sort of stuff. But yeah, so the first thing I would find out would definitely be their goals. And then from there, I'd find out where their starting point is. So I would generally give them fitness assessments, and I would base which fitness assessments I'm doing based off like general questions that I'd ask them, such as their training age, which is essentially how long they've been training for. If they have experience, I'll probably be giving them more advanced tests. For example, maybe they could do a pull up test. Not everyone can do a pull up. So I wouldn't be doing that for someone who's trying to lose weight necessarily. For them, I would keep it more simple. I'd probably end up doing something like a plank test, a wall sit. Like you were saying before, these are all tests that anybody can do on their own. You could do a push up test, and all these are going to give you just general baselines. And once we start training, we're going to target those specific muscles so we can see performance increases.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So what does it feel like when you see somebody really improve?
It's actually very, very rewarding. There's not much that I can say to describe the feeling that you get when somebody says that they're starting to feel more confident in their own skin because of what I've done. I've had clients tell me that they're starting to feel like their muscles coming in, and they get, like this really genuine smile on their face. And there's really not much that can be said about that feeling. You kind of just have to be able to experience it. It's the same as doing something that, like giving your family a gift on Christmas, and like you can see that they truly genuinely enjoy it.
Mm-hmm.
That same sort of feeling. It's like I've done something genuinely good for this person, and they're appreciative of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a great feeling.
That feels like that sounds like it is a great feeling.
Mm-hmm.
With some of the work I do, it's a lot of like long time of just setting things up, but once you actually do it, it's like you can't describe the feeling. Just working towards something and achieving that goal is always great.
Yeah, especially the delayed gratification of achieving a long-term goal. That's so much more rewarding than this instant gratification that our society loves to support.
Talk about that.
Yeah, so I'd love to, especially with the way that TikTok is set up. We're always on that instant gratification. You swipe and you go from one easy laugh to the next, and it's like we're reliant upon this phone in our hands, or that sweet to give us that high feeling, or this drug to make us feel a certain way. And rather than actually going out and doing something to actually make ourselves like feel like we earned that feeling, we're just taking the easy route, which is, it's going to give you a very short good feeling, and then it's not satisfying because you didn't really have to work for it.
Yeah.
I think that the delay gratification is much more beneficial in the long term, because one, you learn how to work for your goals, work to achieve what you want, and two, at the end of the goal, once you've accomplished what it is that you set yourself out to accomplish, it's so much more gratifying. And you can ask anybody who's really like set themselves up to hit a long-term goal, and once they reach it, it really is worth the wait.
Yeah. What are some ways you try to delay your own gratification? What are some ways that you try to delay your own gratification?
So, lately I've just been trying to become more efficient with my time management.
Yeah,
You
we were
know,
saying that earlier.
yeah, I've really been trying to like start planning my days out, and really like limiting the amount of time that I'm wasting. And generally, I'm the same as anybody else, like typically what I would like to be doing is sitting on the couch watching television, scrolling through my phone, and it's really just been a matter of working on my craft, trying to hone my skills rather than going for the easy way out, which would just be laying in bed, being comfortable, scrolling through my phone. And I feel like in the long term, it's going to get me more places than I ever would be if I were to just live the comfortable life.
So what do you think? Because I agree. I want to ask what you think discomfort can bring to somebody.
Mental fortitude. Yeah, which has a lot to it, because mental fortitude is a lot better than even just physical strength, because if you're mentally strong, you can overcome any adversity. It doesn't matter what's in your way. You will find a way to get through that obstacle, and you will find a way to your goals.
Yeah. And I've noticed that, as much pain as your body might be going through, you can really push yourself just with how hard you want to try it.
Mhm. Yeah, the
And
mind wants to give up when you're about 50% done, and you still have
the mind's
50
always
more
ready to give
percent.
up.
It
The
is.
mind is always ready to give up or keep fighting.
Mhm.
It's just, are you going to let the mind be controlling you, or are you going to let your mind be your shadow? Like, are you going to follow what your mind wants to do? Or are you going to do what you want to do, and the mind will be your friend?
You have to tell your body that I'm in control.
Mm-hmm.
The mind is the one that tells the body what to do, not the other way around. If you really wanted that, if you're doing bicep curls and you finish your set and somebody says, I could give you $1,000 if you do one more rep, are you doing another rep? Because you probably shouldn't if you're training hard. But a lot of people, they could probably get a solid $3,000 right then and there.
Yeah, very true, very true.
They're really holding themselves back, and it's not the body, it's the mind.
Mm-hmm.
They haven't really locked in how to really push themselves, how to find comfort in the discomfort,
Yeah.
and that's when you find real strength.
So I know, I talked about this earlier too, the ice bath that you did at the RWC. I'm doing it next week.
Exciting.
Talk about what that was like, because I know when I've taken cold showers, I always like to be in the cold too. I have to really harness and hone in on the breath that's coming in and out and control my temperature, control my body. That's what Wim Hof does.
Mhm.
This man, Wim Hof, has been able to be combative and fight against diseases that every other human being, most other human beings, would fall ill to. They've done tests on him. And he attributes it all to his breathing patterns and his diet, his health.
Mhm.
So when you were doing the ice bath, what was that experience? Because I saw it on your story. I saw it on YouTube. You can go watch the video too. Talk about that.
Yeah, so it was a chilling experience for sure.
Get it? Chilling.
It was so the first thing you notice when you get in is immediately your mind wants out. That's the first thing that happens. And um the easiest way to really talk yourself through it is to focus on the breath. And breath work is huge for athletes. Every time that I'm training, I'm coordinating my breath with my lifts, because as you breathe out, you're actually getting a little bit extra strength.
Hmm.
And so by coordinating the breath work with your training, it actually can have slight performance increases. And the ice bath really makes you focus on your breath because your body is in shock almost. So the only thing that you're really in control of in that moment, only thing that your mind wants to focus on is the cold and your breath. And it's really a different kind of training. It's a mental form of training more than physical even because your mind really has to it's telling you to get out and you're telling yourself I'm gonna stick in this. And that's another way to really test your mental
Yeah.
fortitude.
I just tell myself like I am not going to be dead after this.
Mm-hmm.
I will be
You will
alive.
be all
I
right.
will be alive.
You
I'll
will
be
be all right.
okay.
You may, your mind and body may try to lie to you, but keep remembering who's in charge.
So they put you in there, and then after 15 minutes, they say like come out.
Yeah. I didn't know how long I was gonna be in there for, and I stayed in for 15 minutes, and I was shivering for probably about 20 minutes afterwards.
How cold is it?
So I think that she said it was 55 degrees.
Oh,
Yeah.
not that bad.
No, no, until you get in there, it's not.
I mean, actually, probably it's pretty cold. I was watching this documentary called My Octopus Teacher. I don't know if you've seen it on Netflix, but
I
this
haven't heard of it.
guy off the coast of South Africa just swims in the reef and eventually makes friends with this octopus. It's a fascinating documentary, and they become like friends in a way. But I think the water he was swimming is 48 degrees, and he
Yeah.
was like, after a year, you finally get used to the cold. And I'm like,
Yeah. Your body goes numb.
yeah,
Hmm.
but you feel so good. I love being cold.
Afterwards, it's like a rush of endorphins, and it's really just like a different outlook almost. Like the bright light hit my eyes different almost, and
Hmm.
I just had a different energy about me right after. You know, it was quite the experience.
Would you do it again?
I'm definitely gonna do it again. It wasn't my first ice bath, and it won't be my last.
Was it like the hardest one you've done?
It probably was the hardest ice bath I've done. I've never had a
Is there ice
so
in it, or
much
is it just
ice.
cold water?
It's ice. Yeah, so they have a big ice machine and they have this big bowl which they fill up about 4 or 5 times.
Is there water, or is it just ice?
Yeah, it's water and ice. And
Oh,
so if you're sitting up, it's only gonna come up to about your rib cage level, but you should really dunk. I didn't do a head dunk, which maybe I'm a bitch for, but
dude, you
you
were in there
know,
15 minutes. You're okay.
it's all right. I had class afterwards. I wasn't feeling the head dunk.
But you were up to like here.
Yeah, I went down to my neck.
Oh man.
Yeah.
I remember I was watching this Wim Hof documentary, and he gets all the people that he's working with to go. Like at the end of their training, he's like, "We're gonna go in this lake surrounded by snow with their bathing suits and stay in there." And everybody like goes in. They're all like freaking out, and he's just
He's mastered the breath work. He's
yeah.
mastered the breath work.
I used to do the Wim Hof technique. I still meditate often, but I do the Wim Hof technique every now and then to expand your lungs. You can keep yourself warm. You can really focus on the way you're breathing and control the way you're breathing. Um,
You know about belly breathing.
Kinda.
So essentially, typically when people are breathing, they breathe and they expand their chest. It's not really necessary because our diaphragm expands up and down and it's a bit lower. So if we're really breathing in deep, our belly actually expands rather than our chest. And
Yeah, yeah, my girlfriend told me that.
yeah, so very recently, it was last Tuesday at the RWC, they had a group meditation and we went over 4 different kinds of meditation and one of them was talking about belly breathing where we were talking about this method where essentially as you breathe in, your belly should be expanding to fully receive as much oxygen as you can rather than the typical chest breathing, which most people do naturally because it's just a misconception that people think that the lungs are just expanding when really the diaphragm is the one that's going to be expanding as
Hmm.
we're breathing in deep, which expands our belly a lot more. But
Yeah, it's like you have to have a lot of energy guided towards here. I
mhm,
remember you actually came to one of the meditations that I led
mhm.
last year, which was fun.
Yeah, I really dig meditation. It's a great way to help center yourself and really just find some inner peace.
How often do you meditate?
I am out of the practice lately. Yeah,
Mm.
the time with my coworkers was the first time in probably about 3 months. Yeah, it's been a while for me. But I've never really had anything against meditation. It's just a matter of finding um I haven't prioritized it. That's really what it is.
Yeah.
I've been trying to accomplish a lot in other aspects of my life, so unfortunately, my spirituality was put on a little bit of the back burner.
It
Yeah,
happens. It happens sometimes.
yeah. And once again, that's why I'm trying to hone in on my time management skills.
Yes, yes. I I used to meditate for 5 minutes a day all the time. And then I read this book called Courage by this man named Osho. Um his story is crazy, but he was like the sort of guru. People worshipped him like Jesus in like the 1970s and 80s. It's amazing to watch. But he would talk about how, you know, don't meditate for 5 minutes. Try and talk, like, just be with yourself for like an hour or 30 minutes. And so I started meditating for 20 minutes and then 30 minutes. I haven't done an hour yet.
Hmm.
Um, but I noticed over those 20 minutes, like, it was like, this is actually not that hard to do for this long. And I started meditating more and more for a longer period of time.
I
Um,
I think that it's harder when you're first starting.
it is so much harder. But now I notice, like when I've had a really long day and I want to just like indulge, I'm like, I'll just meditate for 5 minutes,
Hmm.
because it still is important to do as often as you can. Just being able to say to yourself, I'm gonna just be with myself. I don't need anything else to keep me entertained. I don't need anything else to do other than just allow myself to sit. And I love meditating. I really think it changed the way I view the world and the way I am as a person.
Definitely, definitely. It definitely has a lot to do with my grounding. I have a little background in Reiki, which is essentially
What is that?
using the earth's energy, transferring it through your body, sharing it with others.
Hmm.
So there's a lot of meditation involved in that.
Reiki?
Yes. There's a lot of meditation involved in that, and it's definitely helped me in previous parts of my life. Right now, I feel like fitness has kept me grounded enough. It's kept me, um, it's really just my release. So as long as you feel like your life is in balance, I feel like that's the most important
Yeah.
aspect.
And meditation is not just sitting down with your eyes closed. Meditation is basically just doing something with no thoughts entering your mind. Just literally being in your body and with yourself. Like, you could be playing soccer or lifting weights, and if you're not thinking about anything else other than I'm gonna do this motion and focus on my body, that is essentially a form of meditating.
It's flow state.
Mhm.
That's what it is. Which flow state is something that's very, very hard to achieve. Not many people can naturally go into flow state, but it actually only happens naturally. It's not something that can be forced,
Hmm.
which is very interesting. You know, there's this old influencer who I used to listen to, Mike Chang, who talks about flow state training a lot. And um I think that there's definitely a lot to it from the mental aspect of things. Just because if you're in your flow state in certain aspects of life, it's very, very good. But I think that a lot of the time it's better to be more conscious.
How do you get into your flow state?
And that's the problem. It's not very easy to get into.
Yeah.
It's kind of like you just have to be fully present in the moment, not having any arising thoughts in your mind. It's not something that naturally occurs, it just happens.
Mhm. Where do you find yourself in your flow state?
Generally, I'll either be in flow when I'm training or if I'm writing programming.
What is
Generally,
training? You say that word. I usually say lifting. To
so
you, what is training?
training is any form of scheduled exercise.
Hmm.
So I used to do martial arts, which would be a form of training. Resistance training is another form of training. Cardiovascular training is another form. As long as it's scheduled and planned to be exercise, that's what I consider
Mhm.
training, which is different from physical activity. Physical activity is just day-to-day activities where you're, for example, cleaning your house would be physical activity. Walking to class, riding your bike would be examples of physical activity.
Yeah. I want to talk about something more fun now. I know both of us tore our meniscus at different points, but I think we were both freshmen when we did it.
Hmm.
And when I did it, I didn't get a surgery for 8 months. I was walking on it, squatting on it. I didn't know it was torn. It was an awful pain, like for the week I after I tore it, and then it just went away. Um, but I know we both got surgeries. Surgery was never fun. That first day was tough. Um,
Took me a while to get back to
so
where I was.
I want to talk a little bit about perseverance, and we could talk about our stories as to how we persevered
Hmm.
after that surgery and why it's important to not give up.
Yeah.
So, what do you think of when you think of perseverance, and also how did that help you following your surgery on your knee? And then I'll say my side.
To me, perseverance is just chasing after your goals, regardless of the obstacles that stand in between you and achieving those goals.
Mm-hmm.
So, for me, I was a power lifter at the time. I was squatting,
Nice.
benching, and deadlifting all the time,
Yeah.
and um, I got into mixed martial arts, as I was saying previously. At which point I did two classes back to back. I did jujitsu, and then I did kickboxing.
That's
And
cool.
I had a pretty bad pop in my knee. Came home playing video games with the boys,
Both of us weren't, we don't have the best reasons for tearing our meniscus. We don't
and
need to get
yeah,
too
yeah,
into
I tore, I
that.
tore it with the boys, and essentially had to get brought to the ER. At which point they told me I needed an MRI, and it was pretty hard news, but I knew that it was torn right away.
Yeah.
I didn't know it was necessarily the meniscus. I just knew that there was some sort of cartilage or tendon or ligament that had been torn in my knee. And I mean, for me, I've always been so devoted to this path that I wasn't going to let anything stand in between me and achieving my goals. So I was on crutches, and I would literally crutch my way to the gym after my surgery. I would be just training upper body. Eventually I got into physical therapy, which
Physical therapy
was a
saved
game
my life.
changer. Yes,
Yeah.
definitely. Um, Shout out to Cora Physical Therapy because they really did help me walk again because I was unable to walk. And yeah, he got me doing a little bit of resistance training, a little bit of cardio, just working on getting full range of motion again. And really, it was just about showing up and doing what had to be done. You know, it's the same lesson as life is going to teach you over and over. You just got to show up and get the work done.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I did. And now I'm back up to squatting heavy. You know, I can run. I ran 7.5 miles after my knee surgery. I can do everything, and it's only because I did all the exercises they told me to do. I showed up, and I just never stopped working. You know?
Yeah. Yeah. For me, I remember I knew something was wrong with my knee the day after I tore it. It was yellow and blue. And I went to try and get an MRI. And my mom was like, we can't really afford this. Are you sure you need it? And I'm like, all right, we won't do it. And so we skip the MRI, and I wait 8 months. In that time, I'm squatting. I tried deadlifting a few times. I'm doing leg workouts. I'm running, doing all the things that shouldn't really be done in a torn meniscus. And eventually, I go bike riding, and I'm like, something's not right with my knee. I'm like, something has not been right with my knee since 8 months ago. So this is middle of COVID. I go to get it checked out, and the doctor's like, "You've been walking on this for 8 months." I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "You need to get a surgery next week." And I was like, "What?" Like my knee, this is like gonna guide me through everything.
Mm-hmm.
Like your knees are so important in your life,
Yeah, you
literally.
can't walk without them.
Exactly. And so I got the surgery, and I knew it was gonna be hard, but I knew like over time you can get back to
It gets
normal.
better. Yeah.
So after that first 2 days, those are the hardest. I did all the exercises on my bed, all the exercises they told me to do. Went to UCF, went to physical therapy,
Mm-hmm.
and I was like, I want to walk again. I want to do all these things again. And I showed up, I did the work, and I still do the physical therapy to this day because they told me to do it. And now I can, do everything I want to do. I could play soccer, I could run, I could jog, and it feels great. But I only was able to get there because I had to put in that extra time and effort.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's about putting in the work, you know. And another thing is trusting a professional, you know. That's really another big fact
Mm-hmm.
that really allows you to overcome this adversity. And I felt like that same idea, that same concept can be transferred to anything.
Yeah.
You find the right team around you and they can really uplift you and bring you to the next level and
Mm-hmm.
help you overcome any adversity. It's the same as a good support system. You need the good people around you to really help boost you up. And that's what I had around me, luckily, and I'm sure that's what you had around you because you've come back from it.
It was my mom.
Mm-hmm.
My I had a family member who, when I asked for help, he would like moan and groan as if I was like bothering him, and I'm like, my knee is sliced in half. And that definitely like made my mental state go down a little bit because I felt like I was burdening people around me. But that support system is so important too, and people not making you feel like I'm doing something wrong by asking for help when my knee is sliced in half.
Mm-hmm.
But the support system is so important, and I wouldn't have been there without my mom like saying you got to do this, you can do it.
100%. Yeah, this support system makes a huge difference.
Mm.
I had to I was staying at my dad's house because unfortunately my insurance doesn't cover me
Yeah.
in
Oh.
Orlando. So I had to drive about an hour and a half down south pretty much weekly to get my physical therapy. And once I had left my dad's house and come back for classes. So it was a little inconvenient, but once again, that just comes down to being willing to put in the extra work. And so eventually, one day, I was cleared to just do virtual physical therapy, at which point I would just meet with them once a week virtually, do a couple exercises, and then I'd just be eventually cleared to do everything else.
I wanted to ask because you brought up the health insurance, and I also wasn't able to get my MRI because of how expensive it was at first until I really had to do it. We talked a lot about health and society earlier, but there was one thing we did not touch on, and that is healthcare.
Mm-hmm.
Um, which is probably the single most important thing behind a wage that somebody can have. Because if you're feeling something and you want to say, I want to go to the doctor, and I'm not going to go because it's going to cost $400 for them to just touch my body, look at my ankle, it's going to cost them like 280 bucks. I remember my ankle was swollen. I had an infection on my ankle, on my Achilles, and all she did was 30 seconds of just saying, yeah, that's an infected Achilles. This is gonna be a $210 visit. And I'm like, you didn't do anything. You just told me to go somewhere and get medicine. You did nothing for me. And so that might turn a lot of people off from wanting to go get checkups at the doctor. How do you think, why is healthcare important? And how do you think healthcare being a commodity affects the way people are healthy or affects somebody's health?
Yeah, I think that a lot of people are honestly scared to go to the doctor just because, like you said, the financial situation. And people are really struggling financially, especially now.
Mm-hmm.
We're going into
Recession.
economic recession,
Mm-hmm.
exactly. And yeah, it's scary times. So, I mean, as far as healthcare goes, it's just the way that we're set up in America. It's unfortunate the system that we have, but you kind of have to pay in if you want to get fully covered, which is
Mm-hmm.
hard for a lot of families. And I mean, truthfully, it would be great if everyone could just work hard and earn enough of a living to earn enough to really cover that health insurance. But
Yeah,
it's a lot easier said than it is done.
it is.
It's really, you have to find what you want to do, what's going to earn you money, and you need to hone in and you need to do that 100% so you can take care of one, your own health, and two, your family's health, because that's prioritizing your health. So it's unfortunate that that's how our system's set up, but you have to play by the rules.
Yeah.
And the rule is whoever has the most money gets to play the longest. So.
Yeah. Until Bernie Sanders comes in and changes it, but he's not going to run again. That's why I'm for socialized medicine. We see it in other countries, and it those countries have a lot less obesity than we do. Um, but
Not that obesity can be cured by a doctor. It's a lot on individual choice.
yeah, it is, and also the diets and everything. And it wasn't just obesity, but
But
at
you get
least
to choose
the
everything that goes in your mouth.
the illnesses in America and the health status of our citizens is far worse than some other countries, especially some other first world countries.
Mm-hmm.
And so I wanted to ask, how does having expensive healthcare affect somebody's health? Like, if somebody might have a disease or something broken in their body that they need to get checked out by a doctor. They're saying, "Oh, I just went to the gym. I tried to bench and I feel something torn. I want to go check it out," and they don't, and eventually they can never lift weights again. So, how does, expensive healthcare make it so that people aren't able to be as healthy? Because obviously, I'm all for like, work, make that money and like have enough to go get the healthcare you need, but sadly, it's not like that for everybody. I had this conversation the other day. I was like, if somebody just wants to be a Domino's pizza preparer and they don't want to move up in management, they just want to live and work at Domino's and spend their life doing that. They want to be the best at it, good for them. But even if they do that, they still won't make enough money to do the things like going to the doctor or buying something that they actually enjoy. And obviously, the job might not be as contributory to society as some other jobs, but I think if somebody wants to get their health checked up on, it should be something that you say, you don't need to pay all this money for it. It's your health. It shouldn't be a commodity. So do you think health is becoming more of a commodity?
Um, it's a tough question. It's a loaded question. I think that it definitely is kind of pay for good health, which
Mm-hmm.
is not the way that sounds morally correct by any means.
Yeah.
That being said, the problem with universal healthcare, which I've heard, is that how are we gonna pay for it? It's gonna come from our pockets eventually, once the taxes come back around. Um,
I
it's
have
a
heard
tough
that.
situation,
Yeah.
It's a
And
very, very tough situation. And unfortunately, it's not already set up so that we have it included, and doctors are expensive. Medicine
they
is
are.
expensive. So it makes sense that it's going to have to get charged from somewhere,
Yeah.
which, I mean, our government's already, what, $17 trillion in debt?
30.
Are we going to add on more of that?
Yeah. And I hear that. I hear people asking me how we're going to pay for it all the time. And I always bring up two things. And one is like, here's a scenario. Imagine you have a janitor making $10 an hour and then personal trainer making $20 an hour. That janitor is taxed and he walks home with $5, let's say. You're taxed and you walk home with
I
ten
don't know how
dollars.
taxes work, by the
Yeah.
way.
Well, like in a simple way, imagine like, like I said, he makes $10 an hour. This is
Yeah,
an exact analogy. It'd be
yeah.
much more precise. You make 20 an hour. And when he gets taxed for his health care, he walks away with $5 left. And let's say in this ideal world, it's enough for him to do whatever else he wants. The other $5 goes to his health care. With
Mhm.
you, if you're making $20, they tax you, and they say that they take $10. You still have $10 left because you might be putting in more work than a janitor. And I think people say, a CEO and a janitor shouldn't make the same amount of money. And I'm like, I'm in no way, shape, or form supporting that. I think if somebody is contributing more in a certain way, they should be getting paid
You
more.
should be paid based off your value.
Exactly. And the other thing is when I also hear how we're going to pay for it, I always understand that concern because it's not like it's going to be a cheap thing to do. But I always consider the amount of money we're spending on the military and
Yeah.
the 800 bases around the world, you know, and the money we're sending to Ukraine, $63 billion already, 111 billion, I think, in total. And I'm like, why isn't this money, instead of being put on towards machine guns, to MRIs, to saying we're going to pay doctors more, we're going to pay nurses more? Because there are nurses on strike in places like New York where they're saying, us nurses aren't getting paid enough, we're understaffed, and the patients aren't therefore not able to get the treatment they deserve. And they're already paying such exorbitant prices for what they want to get. So I think there definitely needs to be some reform to make sure that healthcare is more accessible to people.
More accessible would be ideal.
Exactly.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. But I mean, it's not changing right now. So the only thing that you can do is worry about your actions.
Yeah.
You can worry about focusing on trying to get as much money as you can, trying to really hone in on your craft so that you are prepared for whatever situation arises.
And that's true. Like
You have to play to the system,
I hear that.
unfortunately.
I hear that all the time. But that doesn't mean don't fight for changing the system.
Of course, of course.
I think my takeaway is understand what capitalism is and how it will affect you, and find ways to, not only combat it, but make sure you're prepared financially for the things you're gonna have to pay for, the things you're gonna have to do. But the one thing I hate about our economic model is I'm seeing, we have to constantly be like, we have to play by the system, even though we aren't in favor of it. And I think it's more rooted than just capitalism itself. I think it's our political process.
I
The
agree. The political
Democrats and Republicans we
processes.
have right now have abandoned you and me and everybody else. And now we have to be in the position where we're like, we want free healthcare, we want cheaper healthcare. We're not going to get it. Now we have to do what we can to fend for ourselves. You know,
Well, it's always been that way, you know?
it has been, but there have been moments in American history where, the government would step in and say, we're going to do these types of things to make the economy bounce back. And I think it was like the 1950s. You hear
Yeah,
about
they've
like
had to step in a couple times economically.
the golden age was like in the 50s, at least for white Americans, when they were able to all get houses and have families and sustain themselves. Yeah. But I don't think the Democrats or Republicans are looking out for the people that need to be looked out for right now.
I I think that there are a lot of people who are in hard positions, and the biggest thing I can say to them is just really like focus on what you want to do and what can make you money, because that's the only thing that's in your power is your actions.
Yeah.
So change what you can change.
Very true. Very true. So, on that note, Ethan, the Natty King, you saw him live here. Thank you for showing up. Tell people where they can find you again. Tell people where they can watch some of your videos. And I'll ask one last question, make it fun. What is who is your biggest inspiration?
I've had a lot of inspirations throughout the years. A lot of inspirations. One person who I really love lately and who really talks about the hard mentality that you really need to overcome any adversity is David Goggins.
Who's that?
He's a ultra marathon runner.
Oh
He's
wow.
a ex military, and he went through the SEAL team course. I think it
That's
was
rough.
3 times he
Oh my
went through it,
God.
and
Oh my God.
he failed the first 2 times, I believe. He like he it's an amazing story, but the adversity that he managed to overcome, it really is inspirational. I necessarily would not recommend that people do what he does because he is so far out there. It's not going to work for a lot of people. A lot of
Yeah,
people
yeah,
are going
yeah.
to get injured, and that's not what I want. But you can take some pieces of his mentality and really try to implement it in your own life. And I think that that's what I've done, and that's what's helped to really change my outlook. If you enjoyed, you can follow me at Instagram at the NattyKingEthan, on YouTube at the NattyKingEthan, and you can follow my TikTok at EJB122333.
That was like an America's Got Talent when they're like, call the number 188, and they all like do the thing with their hands. I'm inspired. I worked out today. I saw Ethan. I'm gonna work out again tomorrow and the day after that. I hope I'm gonna see Ethan there, inspiring others. Let's go. Do what we can do. Be the best people we can be.
Yes, sir. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you for being here. I love Ethan, and I think you guys will love him too. So go subscribe. Thank you guys.